without further ado, we're going to make a start. A few house rules again. We are a bit pressured for time. There's a lot to get through. So think about your questions before you throw them in at the end. However, we do have an option for physical preparation 5, which could be a review of 2 or 3 units and a larger Q&A at the end. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so here we go. As normal, here's a bit of reading for you. The top one, Self-Myofascial Release Roberts, is a PDF manual. I think it's really worthwhile you getting and having a look. And it will become clear later when we have a good look at self-myofascial release and Mr. Neil Williams, if you're out there, Neil. Although I might not use all of him, I might save a little bit of him for another unit because they're really good. Fascia is a very, very good book. And if you want to get your heads around anatomy and exercise with a good pictorial reference, Running Anatomy is a great book too. So we're talking about screening. Now let's go back over what we covered in parts 1. We talked about in part 1, we talked about lots of things like triple extension, triple flexation, range of movement, center of mass, base of support. Do we all remember that? He says in a very teachery sort of way. Did you go over it? Did you have a play? Did you have a look? Did you have a watch of your athletes going through lunge and squat patterns? There'll be more examples of this coming up. So we're moving now. We've done some theory. We're moving on to some more practical application with screening. So what is it? How can you find out what's not in place? How do you screen and assess? The big problem in the wider coaching community is it's very easy to have a look at something and say, that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's not very good. Well, how do you correct it? And probably more important, how do you embed it into the athlete and the coaching and your group and your psyche to allow for progression? Difficult. Okay, so we need to understand what it is, but we also need to understand that it's all part of this. And excuse me with the road running community, but it's a huge problem in the road running community because drills, physical preparation, conditioning is not ingrained as much as it is in the Harrier community, and it's not very well ingrained in them either. That's going to get me a lot of trouble. Do you remember this one? This is the big screen. In my view, this is what we would like you to. This is what I'm asking. I did give you a bit of homework. Did you have a look at this? Can we go back to triple extension when you stand up, for example, triple flexation when you sit, center of mass over base of support, giving you the base of the pyramid to actually go through and create the range of movement required. The fundamental movement patterns, squat, going from double to single. Remember, all the processes go from double to single, forward and back, push and pull, brace, hinge, land and drop. Yeah, always regressing to progress, hurry slowly. So if anybody wants to go over that slide again, take a screenshot. Movement skill, shut up, Mark. Physical preparation 1 is now online. So you can go back and have a look. A pyramid, the pyramid of movement and mindset. So at the bottom, we have the functional movement screens, and we'll go through some of those later today. And we move from a position of unable or dysfunction to a position of function, I can do. And that happens through all the sequences. And we will talk a little bit more about the functional movement screens as you can see at the bottom. We move from a functional performance, you can't perform, to an area where you can, from inefficiency to efficiency. If you were lucky enough to watch some of the IAAF Diamond League last night, you will see some very efficient movement. But they came from, originally, in all probability, an area of inefficiency. And from functional performance, we move to functional skill. and you have to go that way round, from the base of the pyramid to the top. You can't go to the glory stuff without getting the base of the pyramid correct. And this was adapted from Gary Cook's book, as nudged to me by Neil Williams last week when we were talking about screening and books and places to go. Cook's book is good. Why would you assess somebody? We want to solve the problem. Identifying areas where movement is a dysfunction, range of movement perhaps, leakage, inability, reduce the potential of injury, a reduction of the incidence of injury, and the athlete continues to present major physical limitations. Now that's what you might see in your local running clubs. Time after time after time, athlete cannot still do the functional movement pattern or the functional movement. So that's when you regress to do some work and maybe even start to use some self-myofascial release, which is where we will come in shortly. The assessment will have a reaction, and a positive reaction, on performance. It explicitly links physical qualities to technical qualities to improve movement, and you can't go to technical without physical. That's again another physical preparation, but we will talk about it. Longevity of performance and retention. You want your athletes to be in the game at the highest level they can be, achieving their potential for the longest possible time. So there are some screens that you could do at your own clubs, at your own in your own field, anywhere really. And I've picked 5. There are many more, but here are 5 that I've picked. An active straight leg raise. So obviously that is starting to look at range of movement within hip complex and maybe tightness around what you might call a hamstring. And at this stage, I point you back to a very early webinar we did when maybe you should be looking at flossing of your hamstring and leg, because it might not be the hamstring at all. It could be the sciatic nerve. Maybe you could look at that later. The video itself is called Hamstrings, Should We Be Stretching Them? Shoulder mobility. How often do you see athletes running in any genre with tight shoulders put into their ears, or round shoulders or drooped shoulders? Shoulder mobility is a key restriction in running. A forward lunge, as we discussed a fortnight ago, is a key movement pattern and one that is assimilated to all forms of running. Remember, we'd also said that we need to be able to lunge forwards and backwards in multiple directions. But a forward lunge is a basic holistic screen. Squat, and we'll leave the park overhead just for a moment. Squat is a basic holistic screen. If you cannot squat, that is something we need to go to. But the overhead squat will actually show you all of the extensions, and we've got a cunning little video to show you that in a minute. And knee to wall is finally is the one I picked, because if you go to most running groups, he says in inverted commas, and say, okay, how many of you have or have had an issue with your Achilles? There will be a lot of people putting their hands in the air. So to measure knee to wall will be a way of assessing that, and some of the self-myofascial release techniques I can show you soon will help you get over it. So there we go. So for shoulder mobility, There we are, and you see that we've got the young lady there to stand very straight. That's not me, by the way. I've stolen the video, the pictures here. But there's a straight stick going up the spine, and you can see that they've got marks on it. You could use a ruler, you could use a broomstick, you can use whatever you like. But there are marks on that stick which show you the range of movement currently. And then post screening, post any self-myofascial release, you can go back and revisit that and hopefully see improvement. Here we have the hamstring range of movement, again being measured there, but also it's the angle that's being measured, where the athlete lying flat, prone, how can he get that foot with dorsiflexion in the ankle to vertical. And I go back again to the hamstring. Should we be stretching the video? Flossing, maybe just releasing the tension in that ankle might allow the athlete to increase the range of movement, and that will show you that maybe we are talking more a line of the sciatic nerve rather than the hamstring. There's an overhead squat, and we've done it this way so you can see the triples in action. There's another one there actually which I haven't shown you, should have done it, but there we go. 1 2 3, yeah, we've got the triple there. 3 4 5, a triple there, and you can see if you went to 5 6 7 overhead, there's the other one. So there's triple flex and extension in the same movement pattern. Knee to wall, you can see here you've got in barefoot, which is a good way of doing it, a straight knee to the wall, and you are measuring the distance between the wall and the lead foot's ankle. I hope I said that right. The distance between the lead foot ankle and the wall, where the foot does not leave the floor and it is planted straight, not twisted, not bent, but straight. And the distance between the ankle and the wall will show you the range of movement currently within the ankle complex, and how then you will see where you might have to do some work, because when you do the other ankle, are they the same? You might have one which is certainly more impinged than the other. And finally, the lunge, and we saw Harriet doing lunges beautifully, and Amy, last time, and you can go and revisit those where they were lunging forwards and backs and weighted and challenged as well. And by the way, Amy's weighted med ball challenge was a 6K ball. That's quite some challenge. So let's have a little look at the overhead squat pattern. If I can get it to load. Yeah. I cannot get this to load. Perhaps the tech is going to kill us today. I'm going to move on, folks, and hope that at some stage I might be able to show you that one again shortly. But that one that currently is not going to load for me. So I'll go back to the presentation and I'll come back to it in just a moment. And we'll have another go, because we've been having some technical issues today, and this is but one of them. But what we were going to show you was two athletes doing an actual overhead squat and sitting back into... Oh, Darren tells me you could see the videos, but I could not. So let's go through the over... Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, okay. So let's play it again then. So you should be able to see Amy in her lovely garden doing an overhead squat. you can have a good giggle at Mark, because I can't see what you can see now. So Darren is saying you can all see it, which is great. And then you will see a move into my good friend doing a much heavier squat and holding it in the bottom position, so you can see all those extensions and flexations. And that's a very, very cute squat from somebody who was Robbie was a good 3K runner, 1500-meter runner, went to rugby. As you can see that he's got some muscle on him now, and soon will be joining the constabulary. So now we're going to talk about self-myofascial release. So we've had a look at some of the screens. Now we've got to say, well, what can you do to increase that range of movement, to release certain things that are sticking? And sticking is the right word. There are some equipment there on the left, and we will see some more, and hopefully you will see some more. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be able to see it as we move forward. Fascia, what is it? I look at it as the three-dimensional bond that goes around all your muscles, all your bones, all your tendons. It is the glue that holds and sandwiches everything together. It is three-dimensional, it is multi-layers, and you can see an actual picture there. And where a lot of people get misled, it's all over. It's the whole skeletal sign, and that's where we come back to the book that I mentioned in the first place, and it will show you. There is a great picture that starts to show you that the blue being fascia, and that's where you can see the fascia working throughout the body. So don't think that fascia is just one point. So when you look at your athletes and you do a functional screen, excuse me, you need to think of that where you could help to use self-myofascial release as part of your warm-up and supplemented within the sessions. So you saw the screens, so you're thinking about how you would approach mobility in and around each of these areas, from hamstring, shoulder, ankle, lunge, overhead squat. So we're going to visit self-myofascial release. Now, excuse me if I can't see this, but I can see the timing. So I'm going to shut up for a while and let you watch the screen, and Darren's going to tell me whether you can see it, even if I can't. Oh, I can. Excellent, I think. So I can now see this one. So this is the equipment that my friend Neil is going to use. And Neil is leading a big road running community, or running community, down in Plymouth. That is a lacrosse ball. Ideal, buy one. Look at the range that Neil has got in his foot. You must roll this slowly. If you think you're rolling it slowly, you're not rolling it slow enough. Also see the listening foot. There you go. Neil's foot is now listening to it. See the foot movement that Neil is now incorporating into that roll. And that will have not only make his foot feel better, but that, as you saw, where fascia moves and fascia lives, it will have an effect much further up the chain. So just have a look at Neil and his foot, listening foot. And we've got 3 sections of Neil, but I'm ever so sorry, Neil, I'm going to cut you off on section 2 and use section 3 a little later. So there is Neil. He's now moved the lacrosse ball into the line of muscle going up the shin. But look at his foot. Look, he is now moving his foot. And that will have the effect. Just rolling will have a minor effect. You start moving the fascia, and you will now have a much better effect. And you will feel a little lump or a little point of pain. Move the foot. Rolling it up and down is one thing. Remember what we said? You're a three-dimensional animal. Neil has now moved on to his calf. And again, there we go. He is moving his foot. Try it. Put the ball there and just move the foot. You will notice a huge difference. You can do this with a roller. I can hear that question before somebody asks it. You will get a better response with a lacrosse ball. And you can see the range. And Neil has worked out, sorry, Neil, he's a three-dimensional animal. He is moving across and around and up and down. And as we said, moving that ankle complex to get some more benefit into what he's doing. Here, Neil is actually just using another limb to give a little bit more weight to what he's trying to achieve. If you go to supple leopard, you will see exactly the same methods being used there, even using a partner to start to add weight, but that's another progression. Another limb of your own is more than enough currently. So now Neil is sitting on that lacrosse ball. So he's now working glute. And there you go, moving, just sitting and moving. Try it. You will find a point, sit and move, range of movement. Side to side, forwards and back, moving the ball, moving the leg, moving the glute. People spend an awful lot of money. Oh, there we go. There's a little bit of added extra pressure. I'm glad we can't see Neil's face there because he's probably screwed it up and saying, ow. That is the pain cave, as I call it. Now, what he's sitting on there is called an orb. An orb is a 5-inch ball, similar to a lacrosse ball. It is not a sticky, bumpy, knobbly physio ball. It is just a solid ball. If you go onto Amazon, not advertising, but just Google physio orb, you will come up with one of those. They come in a variety of colors, but you want the 5-inch solid version. And that's a great thing to have in your kit bag. Okay. And again, Neil now is using the orb. And you can see the difference, the surface area being different. And the range of movement that Neil is applying, three-dimensional and added weight from another limb. So we're now going to check out Neil's second. Try again, Mark. No, we're going to a point where I can't see what's happening here. So I'm going to have to rely on Darren again. Oh, here we go. We've got it. Don't you just love tech? So Neil is now using a stick. And there is a stick. Again, you can get them off of most decent websites. And look, there we go. We are now moving our fascia through the stick movement. And look how slow Neil is using that. And he's not asking him to bruise himself and rub it really hard, just a good, long, slow movement pattern, rolling all around the shin. Increasing that by, look what he's doing to the listening foot. As I said, there is a third module that Neil's done for me, and I'm going to use that in a later presentation. So you've seen Neil use a lacrosse ball, you've seen Neil use an orb, and now Neil is using a stick. And they literally are just called sticks. Guess you might Google them as physio stick, but it's a stick. And they come in different lengths, so you can have one that you can put in your backpack or one that's a little bit longer, your choice. There. You saw, remember what Neil did with the orb and the lacrosse ball? Exactly the same with the stick. He's found a little knot of fascia in there and he's working at it. Self-myofascial release. People spend a lot of money going to physios, soft tissue physios, to do just this. And the key is, how are you going to embed this type of work into your system of training? Surely there's a good reason for doing this as part of your warm-up. Why would you not do some of this as part of your cool down? Could you think of putting together, that's going back to the Let's Start With series, a self-myofascial release Oregon? Now there's a bit of a thought process for me. So again, we can see Neil working through the full range of movement there. And we've just got a few seconds left, so we'll let Neil finish off, then we'll go back to the presentation. There we go. So we've had a look at self-myofascial release. Now, Darren, if you are ready, what we'll do is we'll say, have you got any questions relating to the presentation that you've seen or physical preparation one, given that we're not too restricted from time, but we would like to keep it pretty much to time, and I apologise. Could you repeat the knee to wall, please, and what should we assess? Well, knee to wall screen, Sylvia, hi, is basically a screen on the range of movement within the ankle, and it's the problems that have arisen within the Achilles and plantar fasciitis that many athletes do come up with. So basically, you've got an athlete that is relatively warm, i.e. they have gone through a warm-up. They stand in front of the wall, square. The lead foot is placed in front of the wall and the knee of the lead foot goes to touch the wall. If the ankle of said lead foot leaves the floor, move it closer. You get to the point where you can touch the wall, the foot is firmly on the floor and it is straight. That's important. You're not compensating or twisting further up the chain, and then you can measure it. And that's how you will assess how it is now. Come back in 2 to 3 weeks' time after you've been doing a lot of work that Neil has started to show you there, and measure again. And I think you will find that the range of movement has increased. I hope that one comes out okay for you, Sylvia, and nice to see you again. What are the pros and cons of rigid versus smooth rollers? Oh, that's a bit of hello, Mark. That's probably a bit subjective. Me personally, I prefer the solid, smooth roller. I think that it works the fascia in a better way. You will see that the ridged rollers and physio balls you get will claim that they get into the areas deeper. I would say if you use the fascia, the understand how fascia works and understand the methods that I've shown you or Neil showed you so well earlier on, that a smooth roller of and a ball, not just roller, the ball of the lacrosse size or the orb size will do, in my view, a better job. But as I did say, it's a bit subjective, Mark. Again, Mark, yeah, if I'm going to point you now to the Southwest Endurance Network, where you will find a gentleman there called Mike, whose surnames have gone straight out of my head. Mike is a physio in Plymouth. And Mike will talk to you at length about the issues. Mike is a chartered physiotherapist, by the way, about Willsmore. Mike Willsmore, chartered physiotherapist, Plymouth, very good athlete. Just ran 151 at a BMC last week, and he will talk you through vibrating rollers. They do work. I'm not saying they don't, but I personally would go back to the original standpoints that we got. I have a question when it comes to rolling and stroke release. Are there any definite no's as what we shouldn't be rolling in the body? Oh, well, definitely no if you are potentially showing a in-depth injury. Okay, now how would you identify that? It might be that you are potentially trying to roll a stress fracture. That is not going to do you any good. Now, the stress fracture will show in a foot, but the only way that you can actually see whether you've got a stress fracture or not is to go and have a scan. So I would say definitely not if you are showing, you feel that there is an injury. We are talking about releasing, but should there be an area? No. If you look through, I go back to the supple leopard and to my showing there of the body. There are I cannot think of an area where well, no, I'm going to be polite, an area where you would not roll. And in the last one we will see Neil actually lying over a ball within the hip complex, starting to work on the psoas. So the answer, I guess, generally, with apart from injury, Mike, is no. How long? How long have you got, Peter? I would say that this is every athlete is an individual of one. So I would say you should spend as long as you can, given the time allowed. What I would say is why would you? It would be better to spend longer on an individual limb rather than dot from limb to limb. So maybe if you were really time pressured and managed, you would say that Monday is foot, Tuesday calf, Thursday quad, Friday glute, and so on, and keep going. But I would say that, you know, if you had 2 or 3 minutes on each exercise, that would be really a really good start. But don't rush and don't roll too fast. Darren, hi. Could we incorporate this into an athlete's mobilization warm-up, or would it be for after training? Both, Darren. I would say this would be definitely part of the warm-up. So here, an example could be that one did a running and mobilization warm-up where we mobilize the limbs Then go to self-myofascial release, then go to session, then go to cool down, then go to self-myofascial release at the end. And as I said, you could be a little bit cunning and incorporate some of this into a self-myofascial release Oregon. Hello, Michelle. What would you do to address shoulder tightness, restricted movement? I haven't shown you that one, or I haven't got Neil to show you that one, but I would say if you've got tightness around the shoulder, I would take the orb. There's two ways of doing it, in my view, and these are not the only ways, please, is to put the orb between your shoulder blades to the area where you feel tightness against a wall and move the range of muscle up and down the wall, a little bit like Baloo the bear would do in Jungle Book. However, another way, which is really good, is to get a medicine ball, and you want a hard, bouncy medicine ball, not a squidgy one, about 3K, and that will give you the right diameter. And you lie on your back over the medicine ball and give yourself a hug, i.e. you take your arms across your chest, both of them, which will open up the area, and you can then roll the medicine ball in a three-dimensional way all over the area, and that will help the tightness within your shoulders. Mike, I think I may regret asking this, but what is an Oregon? Yeah, because you didn't watch the other ones, Mike. If you go back to Let's Start With series, you can have a look at a program called Let's Start With Oregon Circuits. But basically, Mike, it's a great question. Oregon Circuits came out of the University of Oregon, and it's a mixture of running interspersed with exercises. So if you were on a track, maybe a 400-meter run, an exercise dictated by the coach of maybe 90 seconds, a minute recovery, a further run. You could do this in a grass area whereby you used a grass circuit with an exercise area in the middle, or on a hill rep whereby you do a hill sprint at the top of the hill, you do the exercise and you come back down. But the exercise is dictated by the coach and must be done absolutely correctly. That's a 100-mile-an-hour view of Oregons, but I would Mike, do go and have a look at Let's Start With Oregons, which is up on Athletics Hub. But it wasn't a bad question, it was a great question. Does self-myofascial release after help avoid DOMS? I think DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness for those catching up, I don't think it helps avoid. I think it might help you get over them faster and maybe help you move it'll help you recover faster. So definitely self-myofascial release will help you recover faster. Will it help you avoid? I think you will always get some form of delayed onset muscle soreness from an intense, in inverted commas, training session, but it will certainly help. Is there anything, if Darren is asking, are there any more questions? Is there anything that anybody out there wants me to go over again from the presentations that you've seen? If you've got any areas we haven't covered, remember we've got 2 to come. The up and coming physical prep presentations will cover next time trunk conditioning. And the last one will be multi-throws and multi-jump pyramids. So you can see where we're going with it. But if there's something that you want us to cover, which we haven't, there's something you want me to go over now, for example, as we did with the Oregons, then please say so, because we do have a little bit of time. If there's something you wish to have a look at and more in depth, Darren has just put up the Facebook group SWEN, the Southwest Endurance Network. It's a closed group. I can, as admin, can give you access. You don't have to be from the Southwest or anywhere else particularly. It's got a very big following, but the people like, as I said, Mike Willsmore, physiotherapist on there, Ben Cox, all sorts of people, Neil's in there as well, of course, and me, all sorts of people who are willing to help you, or there's some good files that you can go and have a look at. Hello, Pete. Does it matter where in warm up or cool down do you do self myofascial release? I would say yes, certainly in the warm up. You would want to make sure that your athlete or you have mobilized before. So you would not start to put pressure on the fascia or any points of discomfort within the warm up before you have mobilized. In the cool down, I would say that it would be the very end of the cool down is where I would place self myofascial release. That's after. Oh, where is a foam rolling webinar? I don't think there is one. To be quite honest with you, Kim. Hi. I have got Neil to do these. The videos of which you've got two of them. There is another one to come. I would point you towards the Supple Leopard, where there is some really cracking pictures. There's also a link on YouTube to Supple Leopard called Mobility WOD, where you will see a lot of rolling and not just foam webinars, but I don't think there is an actual rolling webinar. We're sort of covering it, I hope. The diagram suggests that there's no fascia in the arms and hands. No, it doesn't. However, if I can show you a picture on here from the book, this is going to get tech again. Here we go, guys. Ooh, no, can you see that? There is a picture of fascia in arms and hands. So yes, so which is why I suggest you do get hold of this book, or you do other books and do some reading. There it is, fascia. And it will show you that no matter where in your body, it's all over. It's just that the diagram that I chose to show where it didn't actually show the arms and hands. I hope that you have enjoyed today's webinar and that you have time to go over and practice and revisit and maybe give us some feedback next time as how you got on, what you found difficult. Have you sorted out lunges forwards and back? Have you done squats? Have you done the overhead squats, even ones that I couldn't see? So Darren says, so should we take an overall approach to self-myofascial release, or just ask the athletes to work on problem or tight areas? Personally, all over. However, when you take the all over approach, you might uncover, Darren, areas with your athletes that they didn't think were tight, but are. Remembering that a tightness will probably, as you put it, actually be initiated from further up or down the chain. So a tightness in the calf might be coming from the foot or the ankle, or further up into the quads or hammies. So I would go for a definite all over all approach, because that will help you assess, in inverted commas, where you might have a problem. Whitney, hi. Is it more effective to stretch and then foam roll, or vice versa following exercise? Well, I would say pre-exercise. Do it in two ways, Whitney. I would say pre-exercise, I would mobilize before I rolled. After exercise, when you've got a lot of blood going through your muscles and you are nice and warm, then you could foam after exercise. What is more effective? I don't think there will be. It's what you're trying to achieve, I would say. And why would you not use it as a standalone session, as Neil was showing you there? That's all Neil was doing that evening, was rolling. And if you see, Neil has some of his own videos on that you can join and see him doing this sort of thing live. Why would you not have a live stretch then foam roll session? I see every reason for doing it. Thank you very much, folks. Have a lovely Saturday.